In this video, I'm going to be going over the resources that I use to pass the Salesforce Community Cloud Consultant certification. I have a Google document here that I kind of compiled very quickly to go over with all of you guys, and then I'll be sharing out the key things that I used. So the first thing was the exam guide, and I have a couple links on here. So the exam guide is in Trailhead now. If we click on this link, it'll bring us to Trailhead, and it shows all of the different components that make up the certification itself. Who is expected to be for, which this is something that is key. They're at least looking for somebody with 3 to 6 months of hands-on experience, and I'll get into that a little bit later and my thoughts on that. But the most important part for me down here is the exam outline. So what I did was basically Google search all of these different scenarios and questions just to get a general idea of what is expected from each of these. Even if the search didn't yield that much, what I did was go over any bits of information that I did find on this just to get a general idea of what was going on. So I did that for all of these sections. This does take a little bit to go through everything, but you're investing in your future, so you want to make sure that you become an expert in whatever you are learning, and that's basically what the certifications mean to me, is that I'm becoming an expert, and I am an expert in this particular segment. So going through this section here for the exam outline, and then taking any of the questions that they give you beforehand. It doesn't seem, since they moved this over to Trailhead, it looks like they don't have any more questions or the freebie questions that they give you to look up. The next area is Trailhead itself. So going through the modules, what I did was go onto the trails, filter by community cloud, and depending on your level of experience, you should go through all of these trails. So the expand your reach with communities, that's a very good one in my opinion. Definitely do all of these depending on your skill level and your how comfortable you feel using communities. And one that I definitely recommend is build your community with knowledge and chat. So something that I struggled a lot with on the exam was knowledge. And just because I've never really implemented knowledge myself, I did a bit of reading on it and understanding, different questions, but I did not do anything live with knowledge, which definitely hurt me. I think I would have gotten a better score if I spent some more time focusing on knowledge, but I did pass it. So the next section is just watching videos. For me, it's YouTube. I'll go on to YouTube. I won't do the quick search. For me, it was YouTube. I would just search anything related to communities and just watch videos to get ideas and see what other people are talking about with communities. And that really helps out with understanding things and getting ideas and experience that you wouldn't normally get through maybe your day-to-day job, or going through if you don't have a community yourself, so going through it. So one key thing that I do have, or I do myself, is I watch videos, especially when I'm learning and I'm going through things and I'm kind of focusing on multiple things. I watch videos at a higher speed. So it's something that I've gotten used to over the past couple years, and it definitely helps turn this 21-minute video, because it is kind of long, and to spend your time sitting here watching a video for 20 minutes can be kind of draining. So I watch them at 1.5 speed. It really it helps you get through things faster. If there's anything that you miss or you want to stop, you can always change the speed back and go through it again. But watch these videos, get some ideas. A lot of the things are basic, but some of these guys will go over different things that you have not seen before, so that definitely helps out when you're making this. Next is other blogs and guides. This guide that I have here is definitely not comprehensive at all. So I took resources from other people that have taken the exams before and just used and looked at what they've said about this. You can see all of the purple links here, but going through Salesforce Chris, looking through what he said and different parts about the exams and resources that he left, just looking through that information and going through everything and learning from people who have taken this in the past, learning from what lessons they have to share with me. So definitely other guides are really interesting to look at, giving you different ideas to go down. And as I said, this is not a comprehensive guide at all. Next would be Focus on Force. So I did get the Focus on Force exams for this in the different I went through all of the different sections and did one practice exam as well. So I didn't do everything, but I do have a little bit more experience consulting and using communities in my day-to-day job. So that's kind of factoring in how much time I spent like looking at mock exams and things like that. And then I also used Quizlet, which helped me out like when I'm on the road or if I'm waiting in line or anything. It's easy to download the Quizlet mobile app and go through a couple questions while you're waiting or while you're idle. So Quizlet's super simple. You can either go on the website and search in Salesforce mock exams or community cloud exams. Tons will show up. I normally pick the most recent one that comes in with like a lot of questions. So let me just search it. I do a filter by most recent, and I'll pick the ones that have like a lot of questions in them. So when I did this, it was this guy's questions that we had on here, and I'll either do the learn section. So this repeats questions if you get them wrong, or if I am just flipping through and wanting to go through different items, I will do just the regular flashcards. But this Quizlet, if you didn't know, they're just flashcards. People put up questions very similar to what is inside of the exam, and you can practice on those. So one thing to note here is do not focus on just learning Quizlet cards. So I went through hundreds of these cards here. It's very don't rely on them for actual quiz information or actual questions. I think these should be used as a resource to understand the process better, but definitely these are not the same exact questions. Some of the questions are similar, but Salesforce has a huge question bank, number one. Number two is the questions are wildly off, and I mostly use these as just additional material to kind of check my knowledge. And then whenever I got a question wrong or I was a little bit skeptical on the answer, I would actually go and check inside the communities themselves, and I'll show you what that kind of looks like for this particular question. So it's asking, they created several recommendations, and after the annual conference, this event, zoom in here, after the event is done, they wanted to remove the recommendation. So before this, I hadn't really worked with recommendations before. So when I was going through this, I was like, hey, let me check this out and see what is going on. So I'm just going to log into my Trailhead org, which should have the items that I built with the recommendations already. But this is my process, and I'm pretty sure that I have it in here. So yeah, the review and replicate scenarios, I highly recommend this. If I could bold this or make this red or something like that, let's probably make it red. Replicate scenarios as much as you can. Some of them are a little bit complicated to get done properly, but at least going in and trying to check them out yourself is super helpful. So I'm going to just kind of run through it really quick on, let's say it was this question. I did get this one wrong at least one time, this one's saying. So it's basically how to take off recommendations once we have put them into our community. So the first thing I'm going to do is go on the builder and actually put it on my community. And that is just the recommendations carousel, most likely, that they have on here. So I'm putting this recommendations carousel, let's put it in the banner, and it looks like nothing is showing up for right now. So one thing to note here is once we're already starting this and we're trying to figure this out ourselves, we're saying, hey, I put the recommendations out here and I'm not seeing anything in here. Why is that? So that's like first, not really red flag, but learning opportunity for me. I come into this and I'm putting out the recommendations and I'm not seeing anything. I don't see any area in here to update the recommendations or put anything out here. So that's like the first step in my discovery and learning about how I taught myself going through these mock questions. So then you go into the workspace, and it's already loaded up here, and it should be in content management. Nailed it. So right here we are seeing that I already have a recommendation on here, but we can enable and disable them. We can also create new recommendations, so something else. test.com. So we can put a bunch of things, hit save on here, and it should really actually be event, because that's what they're talking about in the example that they give. So now if I refresh this page, we'll start to see some things come up in the recommendations. So look, now we have this recommendation up here. It still says test, but that's probably used the wrong name. Yeah, button name. So anyways, this is the recommendation that comes up, and in this example they're saying that, hey, we want to, after the event's done, we want to take away that recommendation. So basically what the admin will do is come into the recommendations and de-enable it or delete it altogether if they're not going to use it again, or however that works. So I went through a lot of the questions and basically where I could replicate the scenario and tried to learn from that experience, because I didn't trust. These questions are good to make you think, but I don't always trust the answers that come out of them. Next is just some key areas to focus on. So knowledge, like I said before, I felt like I would have gotten better. I think I got like an 80% on the exam. But I feel like I would have done better if I knew certain things about knowledge. So understand like topic, subfolder or sub limits. I can't even remember the name now, but topic limits and articles and data categories. So just try to understand knowledge, at least in my mind. That's what I struggled on. Community settings. That is one thing that you can actually probably just take a look around and learn, try to figure out what all of these settings do. They pretty much all appear, especially like the super user access and things like that. They all appear, and let me put that down as well. Super user access permissions. That all appears on the exam pretty heavily, and they'll ask you a lot of questions like, well, we're looking to have the manager get access to specific, the manager role in a community, he gets specific access to all of the sales agents, but they don't want him to have access to another portal's user or something like that. So it's definitely something to study and try to wrap your head around when you're looking at the like super user and the permissions. And there's really good videos from Salesforce that talk about permissions and visibility and things like that for communities. I think it's called the What Can I See series or something like that. I'll link to that. Next is, so the community settings. We talked about super user access, permissions, the licenses. Get your head around licenses. Focus on Force has a really good diagram to outline, or it's like a flow chart that shows you which way you should kind of lean depending on the what features you're looking for in the license, and then the communities templates themselves. I think I linked to it here. The community templates themselves, wrap your head around what each one is kind of good for, and especially for the like build your own or the Salesforce tabs and templates, understand why these are still around, and understand that especially for the Salesforce tabs and templates, when you see questions that ask for legacy access or access to old browsers and things like that for communities, it's most likely going to be a Salesforce tab plus Visualforce in those scenarios when they're asking to, we have users that are still on like Internet Explorer 1, things like that. So how long did it take me to study? For me, it actually took 2 to 3 weeks doing basically what I outlined here. What I would recommend for somebody with no experience is to take 2 months. I don't know if you're in a rush, but I wouldn't try to rush this. I mean, they are kind of expensive. Taking these exams, $200 at least. In my head, that's expensive, but it's not it's not something to take too lightly. Don't stress out if you do fail it, because you can always take it again for half the price, and you'll know even more the second time. But I wouldn't try to rush it. So I would say if you had no experience, try it out. Try like 2 months of going through this process that I just outlined, doing the trailheads, replicating things, learning as much as you can. If you have like Salesforce experience, let's just do Salesforce experience, but no community experience, I would do about a month. You can run through things, start dabbling with communities. If you have an internal org and you can spin up a community in a sandbox and try to like replicate some internal processes, that would be really helpful. And then if you are experienced like me, or you have an org that you are using communities and you're looking to get the certification, then I would think 2 to 3 weeks. A lot of the things should feel kind of familiar to you, and it may just need actual definitions or looking up to see, oh, well, these are actually called data categories, and this is called a builder panel, and this is called the property window, and things like that. So wrapping those concepts and terms, and knowing when to utilize different sharing pieces. So I think permission sharing should be, and there's a really good trail on that one for the sharing as well. Close out that one. So rollout strategies. Might be rollout strategies. Trying to look for it. I'll link to it. I won't spend too much time, but I'll definitely do the sharing one. So that was a big one. Book your exam. Sleep well. All the normal stuff. Don't stress too much about passing it the first time. It is a big investment, but don't focus on just passing the first time. Focus on knowing the content and being that expert, because when you're getting that certification, that's kind of what it's saying at the end of it. Then there's down here some other notes that I've been putting together just through my process, but I will definitely have this be like the header page and go through the process for you guys. So I hope this helps everybody. I will be leaving a link to this in the description, so check it out. And let me know if you have any questions. If not, have a good time taking the exam, and like and subscribe if this video was helpful for you.